Chapter 18. When Rosner wakes up, he is not sure whether it is morning or night. When they found it, Masra's lantern revealed a small room, a straw bed, and a nightstand. Its light cast a hazy glow in the dust-caked window, but when Masra shut the door, everything, including his own fingers, were eaten by the darkness. Now the steady glow of torches and lanterns outside cast their fiery light into the room. He can see the outline of Osgrith on the floor, still very much asleep. Not 2 steps away, the shadow of a door is visible. He makes his way there, careful to avoid waking the orc. Outside the room is a stretched hallway with rooms identical to the one Rosner walks out of, to his left and right. The only difference is to his right there is a door at the end of the hall with a burning lantern on either side. The other side ends at a wall. He opens the door and steps outside. Unlike when they came in, lamps now light the streets, as if the life-giver herself shines overhead. In the distance, a large tower illuminates everything around it with the largest brazier he has ever seen as its crown. Rosner takes a few steps into the street in awe. He turns to the right and spots another tower with its fiery crown a little further away. Curious, he starts walking towards it. The streets have only a few people in them. Some are older men walking, others are women with baskets. Rosner passes a blacksmith pounding on whatever he is making. All of them stop to watch him pass. A gnome talking to a dwarf sneers at him as he walks. The dwarf beside him bears a knife on his hip. Part of him wants to quicken his pace, but he refrains. This is not a place to show fear. He does not know what will happen if he does, and he does not want to find out. At some point, he finds himself at a fountain. He reminds him of the one he saw before, but instead of a ball of fire on an arch, this one is on a high pedestal at its center and encased in a globe-like mesh Rosner can stand in, making him wonder how the fire even stays where it is. In fact, he cannot even tell what is fueling the flame. The glowing ball seems to float in the center, a slow tongue of flame occasionally licking at the cage. He looks around. It looks to him like he found the square. Shops line the perimeter, the sparse alleyways separating buildings in between the 4 main streets. Rosner walks up to one at random. Under potions. On the door, a sign reads, "Closed." Curious, he goes to the next one. Krish's Health. Closed. Gresh's Leathers. Closed. It looks like they have not been open in a decade, at least. Is anything open here? Rosner mumbles to himself. Just then, he sees a pair of dwarves walk into a building across the square. Rosner follows, pausing at the entrance to read the sign, Underwatch Ale. There is no sign that says closed, and he can hear chatter inside. A part of him says to turn around. He does not belong here. He has no clue how these people live. He needs to leave. But something else tells him he should go in. See what these people are like. Get to know them. Almost like there is a voice in his head whispering it. He steps in, and a few seconds later, everyone goes quiet. Gruff faces of all kinds look at him with disgust. Only now does he become conscious of the fact that his clothes make him stick out like fire in the snow. Rosner makes his way to the bar, ignoring the stares in the hope they go away. He picks an empty stool near the door, but just before he sits, The dirty man hacks and spits on the seat.
See, it's been taken,
he cracks. The room starts its conversation back up, though noticeably quieter than before. All Rossner does is nod. Instead of sitting down, he stands next to it and leans on the bar. Soon after, the bartender walks up to him. The elf, with her long, tight face and almond-shaped eyes, glares at him.
You do not belong here,
she hisses, like he needs her to tell him this. I know, I am just trying to understand where I am.
Try somewhere else.
The elf woman stalks off to tend to someone else. Rossner drops his head. He thought it was a simple statement. What is wrong with trying to figure out some information about this place?
Hey, boy,
the man next to him spits.
She told you to leave. I suggest you do as much.
Rossner gives the man a sidelong glance. What was wrong with asking about Underwatch? The man snorts.
If you have to ask about it, you do not belong here. Now I suggest you leave.
Then he gives a slight nod. Rossner looks behind him. A large orc pushes himself off the wall and heads towards him. As soon as he walked into the bar, he knew he was not welcome, but this really expresses how serious they are. Since Rossner has no intention of getting killed, he heads for the door. However, there's one upset. The orc stands in his way. When the two meet at the entrance, Rossner must crane his neck just to see the creature's chin, making him feel painfully short. Rossner points to the door. I was just going to show myself out. The orc grunts.
And make sure not to return.
He grabs for Rossner's arm, but another hand, this one gloved with boiled black leather, stops him from ever touching Rossner.
Will not be necessary, my friend.
Both Rossner and the orc look at the man as he pulls back his hood. The man stands taller than Rossner, but still a head shorter than the orc. His skin matches the color of his gloves and cloak. A thick scar trails from his right temple to his chin, splitting part of his lip. Not a hair on his head. His heavy accent is almost as rough as the orc's.
I think he can see himself out.
The orc snorts in disgust, but backs off. The man turns to Rossner.
Let us walk, shall we?
Once outside, Rossner looks at the man. Who are you? Rossner watches the man peer him up and down, then huff.
There are many questions that are dangerous to ask, with more dangerous answers, he hums.
He starts walking, forcing Rossner to follow.
So, what else do you have?
Fine. Why did you intervene back there?
It was suggested I meet you, he says dismissively. I figured that was the best opportunity to do so.
This strikes Rossner's curiosity. He cannot think of anyone he knows that would know people in the capital. Who would that be? He questions.
Another dangerous question, the man sings. Then, I'm starting to wonder if this was worth my attention.
A fire ignites inside Rossner. Worth it? Another dangerous question? Who are you exactly? Oh, wait. Let me guess. Another dangerous question? The man raises an eyebrow.
Ah, so the boy is learning.
Rossner feels a strong urge to punch the man, but he knows it can only end painfully for him. So instead, he takes a small breath and points to the fountain behind them. How about that? Can you at least tell me about that? The man stops and looks back at the fountain. Its ball of fire is a few inches higher than before. You mean the clock of Underwatch? Rosner shakes his head. No, I've seen the clock of Underwatch. I want... When? His statement is flat. Unsure of what he is asking, Rosner clarifies. What do you mean? A sigh escapes the man. When did you come to Underwatch? Rosner thinks back. The entire night is a little fuzzy, but he at least knows one thing. Around dark hour. Why? The clock of Underwatch has two modes, an arch and a pedestal. The arch signifies the path the life giver takes across the sky. It helps reminds everyone that she is still there when she disappears beneath the blanket of night. The flame is smaller because the life giver sleeps. The pedestal represents the power of the life giver. At the rise, the pedestal starts to rise from the fountain and keeps going until she seats her throne. At that point, it follows her descent into the kiss. All the while, the flame tries to match her brilliance. Just like she to the rest of the world, the clock of Underwatch is the heart that keeps this place alive. Rosner takes a moment to look at the fountain. Eventually, a fuzzy image from last night plays in his mind. He stands in front of the fountain with Masra and Osgreth, the brazier on its trip across the arch, the smooth stone wall keeping the water contained. Now he sees the same fountain in front of him. There is one difference, though. Where is the arch, then? Below, the man answers, then almost as an afterthought says, Doors. They are good with metal. Rosner's gaze drifts from the fountain to the tower in the back. He still cannot get over having a fire that large and to have two of them. He looks at the other one he saw earlier, then turns back to the man, now curious to know about the towers, and stops. Just above the buildings behind the man is a third tower in the distance. The clock of Underwatch is the heart. Rosner turns back to where they originally headed. Before them is a fourth tower, blazing fierce and hot, well overhead. At its base is a hole, a speck of daylight shining from the other side. Then he thinks back to last night. There was hardly a torch to be seen. At first he thought they were placed at random, but now he realizes otherwise. Rosner turns to the man, breathless. The towers. They are a giant compass. The man nods. Good. You're right. It is a compass. He shrugs. Not many think of them as such anymore, since direction is obsolete down here. But they are. They have their purpose. He grabs Rosner by the shoulders and turns him towards the tunnel. Now, let us see the rest of the city. Just before they emerge from the tunnel, the man throws his hood back on, covering most of his face and ceasing any conversation. The two of them walk down side roads and alleyways in silence as they make their way to who knows where. Being stuck away from most of the crowd, Rosner only catches glimpses of the bustling city. People and creatures crowd the cobblestone streets, paying no attention to them as they weave between buildings. However, there is no escaping the noise. Voices and accents mix in casual conversation and shouts. The guards' heavy armor clang against the ground with each step. Horses whine as they pull wooden wagons with squeaky wheels. The world Rosner is shown is the back of stone and wooden buildings alike, some a mix of both. Garbage and filth fill the alleyways, with rats and other pests alike digging through what they can find. They pass more people in rags than Rosner thought he would ever see, each one of them watching them as they go. Above, The life giver is on the rise somewhere. He cannot see her above the buildings, but her morning light radiates over the city. The man stops at the larger street, looks around before crossing. Once or twice he pushes Rosner into the shadows as a half-dozen guards pass through. When they finally slow down, they enter a large plaza. Behind Rosner, the man says, "Travelers Plaza, almost identical to King's Hill, just outside the eye." Rosner barely listens to the names. When the plaza in its entirety comes into view, his eyes land on the fountain at its center. At this point, he's not even sure if the man follows him or not. His attention has been taken by the stone dragon. The beast stands tall on its hind legs, well over 3 men high. Its wingspan equally so. Every scale is carved to perfection. Its teeth looks real. The eyes seem like they follow Rosner's movements, but not in ferocity, like he had expected. Instead, whoever carved it detailed great sadness and pain into its eyes. Its talons are carved into its chest. All at once, Rosner is back in front of the statue at home, with the hooded figure staring down on him with unseeing eyes, and the dragon set into a plaque just below the surface of the water. The sadness and pain the dragon expressed as it dug its own claws into its chest, blood trailing from the wound. Rosner blinks and looks back at the large dragon before him. Why is this here? He does not understand what this is supposed to mean. It feels like he is meant to see this, but... Wait. Rosner scans the plaza and the side roads and alleyways. Where is that man? He has to know much more than he is letting on. He almost finishes his search when the 2 people he had hoped to avoid walk up to him. Masra points a strong finger at him. Why do you think you can wander off like that? The venom in her voice is deadly. My pet, you have never been to this city. You could very well have gotten yourself killed or captured. Behind her, Osgrath nods. Never leave with no sight, sibling. Rosner cannot believe this. Really? Osgrath, you too? The desert woman closes the distance with a long stride. Do not be harsh to him, my pet. He was quite worried when he woke, and you were gone. I would think you would know more than to take this place alone. Irritation at this point clouds Rosner's judgment. I was not alone. A man took to educate me on the city. All at once, Masra drops to a whisper. The plaza around them seems suddenly erupt in noise, so he leans towards her. He cannot believe he failed to notice the amount of people now in the plaza. What was this man's name? Her voice has a sudden edge to it that makes Rosner feel like he is about to be pushed off a cliff if he answers wrong. I do not know. Attire. Rosner shrugs. Everything was hidden beneath a cloak, even his face, save when he first approached me. Osgrath grunts, but neither of them pays him any attention. Masra persists. Was his face scarred? He nods. Ash skin with a scar running from temple to chin. Wait. Do you know him? The woman laughs, which surprises him. Personally? No. But knowing his presence is here, we need to move. She grabs his arm and pulls him along. Just like that? He does not think so. Rosner grabs the edge of the fountain and holds her back. He will get answers. I am not going anywhere until you tell me why we need to move, Mas. Before he can finish her name, she is on him quicker than anything he's seen. Her hand clamps over his mouth, and her body pins him to the fountain's wall. Behind them, Osgrath mumbles something, but Rosner and Mazra are too involved in themselves to listen.
Never say my name out loud. Got it?
Rosner feels the acid drip from her words, but with them comes another question. He grabs her hand and slowly pulls it away from his mouth. What are you? His intention is to ask what she is hiding, but an etching on the top of the wall presses into his palm. When his hand first landed on it, he thought it was a piece that chipped off, but then he realizes it is too smooth to be broken. And even still, the carving starts forming a shape in his mind, one that he has seen before, something he has. He lifts his hand and peers down on a small flower encased in a circle. Before he can pull out the coin from his pocket, Rosser grabs his arm and says, "We have to go." All the poison from before is replaced with urgency. He looks at Masra, but his gaze falls on two suited figures standing in the middle of the street at the plaza's entrance. Both of them bear enameled plate armor with gold trim, like the one he saw when the old man first revealed himself to be Palfrey. What are they doing here? Someone shakes him. The armored figures fade into the light and are replaced by a half-dozen city guards, making their way to them. Then Masra's face blocks everything else. What part of "we have to go" do you not understand? Let us move! He lets her drag him off in the opposite direction of the soldiers. Behind them, Osgrath seems to find this the best chance to say, "I try tell you, but neither listen." "I really do not think this is when we should point fingers, my large friend," Masra breathes. Rosner looks over his shoulder. He nearly asks himself why anyone would be after them, but then he remembers only yesterday they were all on a ship to their deaths. He also remembers who put him there. Anger builds up inside him. He wants to fight. But even in his anger, he knows this is not the place, nor the people he wants to express his anger towards. He watches the guards lengthen their strides and start closing the distance between them. I think we have outlived our stay." Masra glances over her shoulder, then looks back at Rosner and nods. "So, you still can think clearly. I am impressed." She takes off with Rosner close to her heels and Osgrath pounding behind him. Further back he hears the guards shout and give chase. The three of them sprint down the cobblestone road, rushing past travelers and city folk alike. Most dart out of their way. The poor few that do not are shoved to the side. Horses drawing carts of hay, barrels, and other assortments whine and protest, but they do not stop. Ahead of them, a group of guards form in a line, blocking their path. Masra grabs Rosner's arm and shouts, "This way!" They disappear into the shadows of an alleyway. Their footsteps send up dust as they strike the dirt. Soft echoes of their steps bounce off the close stone buildings. "Where are we going?" Rosner calls out. Masra takes a half second to glare at him and tell him to shut up before continuing. When they finally stop, Rosner is out of breath with sweat gripping the back of his shirt. Again, Masra glares at him. Then she says, "Wait here," before disappearing into a building carved into the earth. Not too far above is the wall of the eye. In front of him lies a dry well. Its mouth is boarded up, its bucket gone. Around them, the wooden buildings share the well's appearance. It looks like none of them have seen a living person in years. The earth has started to claim some of its land back. Clumps of grass spot the ground. Moss makes its home on the sides of most of the buildings. A few doorways have small bushes growing in them. Rosner turns to Osgrath. "What is this place?" The orc is too busy looking around himself to look at him. "Forgotten," he says, a pinch of disgust in his voice. A few minutes later, Masra comes back out. They do not know where we are, but we are not leaving the city at any point in the near or far future, thanks to your screw-up, my pets. Rosner walks up to her. Hold on. My screw-up? What did I do? What did you do? Really? Let us start with leaving this morning and wandering around a place you know nothing about. Then you go strolling around with some random guy that neglects to tell you his name. Are you really that stupid? For a moment, Rosner is at a loss for words. I guess I did not think that through. She scoffs at him. I would say so. Now you will just have to get comfortable until they forget about us. Masra looks at him a second longer than Osgrath, and him again. I think you have earned the chance to meet the group. Rosner looks at Osgrath, who just shrugs. He turns back to Masra. What group?